Hey, this is Jonesy. Welcome to Custom Kids Cards YouTube channel. And today's topic is adding traction to your Power Wheels tire. Okay, so for today's mod of adding traction to your Power Wheels tires, here's the inventory that you're going to need. You're going to need the Harbor Freight roll mat to cut your 4 strips that are going to wrap around your tires. You are going to need 2 tubes of your preferred caulk. We have 2 different ones because we're doing an experiment. General rule is we say it's 1 tube for 2 tires. So we're using Flash Mate on one side and we're using polyurethane adhesive on the other side. So 2 tubes of caulk. If you are going to basically do this exact technique that we have, you're going to need 4 7/16 bolts, and the reason it's so long is we free up our hands by actually drilling a hole through our workbench, and that holds the tire so that we can work our compression bands around. So 4 7/16, depending on what model you have, it's going to be different lengths. I think that these are 8-inch and the Corvettes are 6-inch, I think. So we have 8 washers and then 4 lock nuts, and we just tighten those down so it still turns but it doesn't free spin, and we'll get into that. Okay, so to clean off the tires when you're getting ready to glue them on, we're just going to use 91% isopropyl alcohol and your wife's dish towel. Don't tell her, but that's going to get any kind of grease and grime. If they're brand new tires, there's going to be mold release agent on there, so you want to get all that off so it bonds really well. So alcohol pad, also some paper towel. Anybody that's caulked knows it's a flipping mess. As hard as I try, I still make a mess with this mod. So paper towel, and to be safe, you know, next time you go to the doctor, maybe slide some of these in your pocket, but just nitrile gloves. We're probably going to put those on to keep it a mess, and if you get a bunch of crap on you, you just pull them off, throw them away, and you don't have to go inside and get caulk and glue all over your door handle. Okay, so oh, the other thing for materials, you are going to need an inner tube, and I talked about to figure out the right diameter. Our general rule is the diameter of your tire is the flat diameter of your tube here. So if you got like a big old tire like this, you're going to need a much bigger tube so that when it lays flat, it's the same diameter. That's the general rule we use. So when you're all said and done, you got the tube, you're going to cut it into 8 strips. You need 2 per tire, and we'll get into all that. That's it for supplies. Now, tools. So right off the bat, you're going to need your tape measure and a fabric tape measure to figure out your width and your circumference of your tires. You're also, when you have the foam laid out, you're going to need a way to cut it. We use utility blade. You can also use scissors, your Sharpie. Okay, as far as work surface, you want a nice table. We use a piece of scrap drywall on our table. This has been cut hundreds of times. We do hydrographics, so we cut our film on this. So just something that you can cut it on safely without getting kicked out of the house for ruining your carpet or your dining room table. So when you lay it out, we use a drywall square, and then of course you're going to need a caulk gun to apply the caulk. Last thing, if you're going to do this exact mod, 7/16 drill bit inside your drill. We space these out evenly, 26 inches, so that we can put our biggest tires, because we do a lot of these mods. So we have good working area around each tire. These Corvette ones are literally the smallest ones of a 12 bolt, I believe that they make. So we space them evenly so that we can come over here and so that we can wrap our compression bands around there once we have our foam on. Make sense? So that's it for the supplies, guys. On to the next side. section. Obviously you guys know that the hard plastic sucks, but believe it or not, it's engineered that way because it's got plastic gearboxes, and if you add traction, you are adding stress to those plastic gears. So that's your warning. If you guys do this mod, you do have potential to damage your drivetrain. Typically we install it in the front because we make things crazy fast. Like this C7 in the back here, it's got 60,000 RPM brushless motors in it, and it's remote control. So it's gonna be a lot lighter weight, plus it's gonna be variable speed with the finger trigger. So I got my little disclaimer out of the way that if you do this mod, you're probably gonna end up breaking stuff, especially if your kid's bigger, you know. So that's the warning. Okay, so we developed this about 3 years ago, and my son's little drift vet he does not like traction on the back. He likes to drift, but on the front, we want it to go where he tells it to go. So we found this mat. This is called anti-fatigue roll mat. We found this at Harbor Freight. It's like $7. It's a 12 square foot roll. It's 72 inches long by 24 inches wide. And originally when we got this, they only had gray. Now they actually have gray and black. So that's gray. We don't use it anymore. It kind of, you know, doesn't look as cool. But there's black here on the table that we're going to go through and demonstrate how to do this process. So let's go over the materials you're going to need. Obviously you saw the matting. You're going to need a way to glue that mat to the tire. And what we used, and it worked flawlessly, and when we pulled it off so we could still use the tires, it came off in one continuous long piece. And what we used is, it's called Flashmate. Not exactly sure what company, Amerimax. So we're going to experiment with some other stuff today. So we're going to do one side in Flashmate, and we found this polyurethane. It's made by DAP. It says it's made for fiberglass, metal, wood, concrete. We're going to do it on the other side, and we're going to see if there's a difference. You know, with these crazy fast RPM speeds, is it going to peel away because of centrifugal force? We don't know. So we're going to demonstrate today. So got your way to glue it. Now you need a way to cut the matting. What we do is we use a drywall square, and after we get your measurements, we just lay it on there at a square line and we just strike it. And I don't know if you can notice, but underneath my mat here, in between the table, I actually have a scrap piece of drywall so that I don't damage my table. So your wife might get kind of pissed if you're in the living room and you cut that on the carpet. You know, stuff like that keeps you out of the doghouse. Okay, so you can use scissors and you need your Sharpie. So once you get that scribe and you cut it out, you're going to need a way to hold the tire, wrap the matting around, and then hold it there. Now, we've used all different kinds of ways. We used our little ratchet straps. It's a pain in the butt. What we've developed is, again, I stole this from my RC truck gluing tire system. I'm not a genius. I just like to think of other ways to use things. So what we have used is a truck inner tube. Again, what you guys are going to need to know is how big of a tube to go with. And I don't even remember the size of this, but what I do is the diameter of your tire and the flatness of the tube itself is the same diameter. That works really well. So once you've got your tube, you can go to like probably a used tire store and they might have some inner tubes that are damaged. Make it work. So basically what you're going to do, and there's a little bit of waste because the inside diameter and the outside diameter is going to be different. So you're going to end up with little pie shapes like this. So what we kind of do is we cheat it a little bit. It's a good one here. So on the inside diameter, we go a little bit narrower to get wider. And what this does, once you cut these strips, you don't want to cut them too wide because then they're a freaking heck to get wrapped around the tire itself. So I've got some strips cut, but I was going to show some on camera here. So basically, we start at like, you know, 1.5 inches, and you're just going to cut it into strips. And it's not like precision. So once you get it, it's really stiff, just like when you're trying to blow up those balloons, those that make shapes or whatever they're called. Can't even think of what they're called. But what I do is I take it and I stand on it and stretch it out. You know, those long balloons that you can make animal shapes out of. But if you stretch that out a couple times, it's a lot more flexible. Now here's the warning. Be careful, because when you're pulling up on that and there's a weak point, it might come up and smack you like your wife when she sees you watching stuff on the internet you shouldn't. So be careful of that too. It's another warning. So once you got your strips, you're going to need a way to hold it around there. So I have developed that I've got these workbenches. Hopefully you can see it. I'm going to go through the whole process. I'm just kind of talking through it right now. And then I'm going to actually do it, cut it out, install it. We're going to let it set for probably 2 days because it's going to be having lack of oxygen. So it's probably going to take longer to dry. Got a pretty funny story is we did a car show.
Those out of green.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. Oh no, and again, this is clean. I want everybody to know it's clean. Alright, go ahead. Yeah.
Turn your lights on. And we got called out for a race by somebody else. All right, we got a grudge match race and we got called out by, what's your name?
Reese.
Reese called us out. She's got this Escalade that's 24 volts against the old 18 volt slingshot. Hate to say it, I think she's gonna take him. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say racers ready and then raise my hand. And when I go down, I'm gonna jump out of the way, you guys take off. Racers ready? On your mark, get set, go! Oh, she let off. And the night before we decided to wrap some of this stuff on because we didn't have any in stock. And when we went there, we went to race and it was still, the caulking was still soft and it literally left black marks on the carpet of the radio station. So we apologize for that, guys over there. Made a big mess, but yeah, you're gonna need like 48 hours to let this stuff cure. Okay, so let's wrap that up there and reset up the camera, and I'm going to show you guys exactly how we do this. Okay guys, you got your stuff laid out on your workbench, and what you need to do is figure out how wide to make these. Well, what we like to do is we actually take halfway where the radius is, so basically the apex of the turn there, and that's what we measure. So this right here measures at 4 1/4 from half round to half round, if that makes sense. So it's pretty easy math. So we're gonna do 4 1/4, and we're gonna do 8 1/2, 12 3/4, and then 17 inches, which we've already done. We've already laid it out. And then length can be figured out. Most people have one of these flexible, this is actually like a cheapy tape measure that broke, so I used this, or you can use like one of those fabric tape measures. But you wrap it around, and this will give you your outside measurement, which is 29 1/4. So after you get your width measurement, we're just going to cut this whole strip here. It's a little bit long, but this is our second set we've made with this roll. So there's only going to be a little bit left. So we're going to do that very last, and we'll show you guys a little trick we use for that. So, but that is how you measure the length if you wanted to. Okay, so let's cut these strips up. We need 4 of them. One. Cut it to where it overlaps, and it'll be a perfect joint. Hopefully that's in frame. I can't tell, but we're going to go through the next step. So that's how we cut those into the strips. It's nothing precision, guys. It's basically going to wrap around like that, and you want it to be a little bit short because you're going to run a bead of caulk around that shape right there. Okay, on to the next step. Okay, so here we are at our little workstation that we use to add traction. It's a nice solid bond. It frees up your hands, and we used to hate doing this, but this system works really well. It's a top secret formula, so don't tell anybody. You know, it's kind of like the Willy Wonka factory here. So once you've got all of your strips cut and your compression bands, you're going to want to clean off your tires. Oh, here's a little tech tip too. After you guys do cut your bands, I recommend that you practice with this. Again, you put it around your foot and put that on there. It's not a bad idea to actually stretch these out because they will get a little bit bigger as you stretch them. And if you guys try to cut these, you know, wider than 1 3/4, 2 inches, you better be a man to get those over the tire. I mean, there's probably ways to do that, but I forgot one tool. I'm gonna have to get my cutter here. Okay. Don't forget your box cutter. Have all your stuff ready, guys. Your caulk gun, your straps, your cutter here, and do a dry fit. So we're going to do that right here in the front. So you're going to wrap it around, and if you go to the very top and try to keep it pretty centered so that it's straight and not right at the edge, you can have a little bit of waste. Stretch it nice and tight. And just take your time. Stretch that sucker nice and tight, because once you put caulk on there, it's going to lubricate it, and it's going to want to even pinch up a little bit even closer. So it doesn't matter where it is, but you cut across. It can even be at an angle, and you've got a little bit of waste from the long end, and here's the other end. But when you go and do this, it's going to be an exact match. I mean, it doesn't have a choice. It's going to be perfect. You can even cut it at an angle, and it's going to follow that. So, but keep it for that tire. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. It's going to be the same diameter. So do that for all 4. Get this scrap out of here. And I guess what we're going to do next, that was just a little tech tip, is get out your alcohol and get it nice and wet and clean them off. And look at it and see if it's got, you know, dirt and grime on there. If it does, flip it over. But this gets all the grease that's on the roads and the sidewalks and all that stuff. These tires are literally brand new, so what this is going to have is it's going to have the release agent on there. Okay, after you got all 4 of those, it's going to be time to get them cut to size. Start with it at the very top, pull tight, and it is key that you have it lined up. So line that guy up, and probably try to cut it straight across. See? Okay, now it's time to get dirty, guys. Okay, get those ready. So these 2 right here are rears, these 2 are front. So I'm gonna actually leapfrog. I'm gonna do one with polyurethane, and then I'm going to do these 2 next. So I'm gonna put that there so I don't forget. This is an experiment. We're going to try stuff out. Caulk gun, true story. My brother did not know that it actually had, the good ones anyways, have a way to cut it and pierce the seal. Okay, so load it in your gun, and you might as well get your gloves ready now. Okay guys, so we got everything cut, we got it ready. Next step is to do a dry fit to make sure you guys don't mess this up when you got caulk all over the back side of this foam. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to take some duct tape. I guess I failed to put that in my list of items, so maybe I'll put some pictures. And this will actually act as a third hand. If you've got helpers in the shop, and you should have a helper because you're building this cool ride-on for them. So you get that in place. I still leave it at the top, and then right before you put this on, take your band and stretch it out between your foot. Get that sucker nice and loosened up, and start at the top and put it on. Now when you have caulk on there, it's going to squeeze out the sides, so probably just take it easy and work it over. You guys can see this process. You're obviously going to have to get the first band to the inside, and then you can always adjust the foam traction band, and then do the same thing with the second one. Stretch and put it on, and this one's going to be way easier. And it's not really a rush thing. It's not like this is epoxy where it's going to harden on you. You got time. So that is basically it right there. The next step is to kind of look down it, and you want it to be a nice, straight, even bead. And then the last step after this cures, because you kind of want this to breathe a little bit. So we're going to let these sit for 2 days, and then we're going to put a bead of caulk on here, and then we're going to strike it with a tool and get a nice, perfect bevel. And then it'll look like it came on that tire. So that's pretty much your dry fit. Now do you guys see why I have it attached to my bench? It only took 3 years to figure that out. Okay. So what we do anyways, and you can do whatever you guys want, is we go for the squiggly pattern and the dot in the eyes. So what we do is we cut it off pretty good. It's a pretty wide bead. We do the zigzag squirrely, and we just go back and forth. It's like icing a tire cake. And then where it's open, we usually just dot it. You guys can do whatever you feel like. And that's pretty much it right there. Dotting the last eye, back out your caulk gun so that it doesn't squirty all over. So, go ahead and center it up. Pull it tight. And make sure you try to keep your gloves as clean as possible, because otherwise it's going to transfer all over the place. You can see I already got some squeezed out. So, okay, so we've got it on there. It looks good and snug, because we know that we did a tight dry fit. Again, take your bands, stretch the guy out, and once it's on there, slowly work it in. And again, there's no reason to rush this. You've got 2 days before this stuff is gonna harden. So we like to get it about quarter inch away from the edge. You don't want it right up on the edge. And if you guys feel so inclined, and then, it wouldn't be a bad idea to actually put a third band in there. So we've got the one, we're gonna stretch this guy out again. Missed it on that first try. Okay. Got a little bit on my glove, wipe it off, because it squeezes out the edges here. And pretty much, I usually don't mess with it too much. You know, if it squeezes out, it's not that big of a deal. But this is an exception, because this is kind of a big one right here, because we don't want it to stick out further than our bead that we're going to put on there. All right, one down. We're going to leapfrog, and we're going to go down to this one right here. Okay, so that's two tires down, and the plunger is about right here. So that's going to leave just maybe enough to do a small bead around the outside. You might want to pick up 2 tubes if you wanted to do the outside bead and the inside bead. A lot of times that wouldn't be a bad idea. Okay, so this is time to do the second side. We're going to use the flask mate, which is actually clear. I didn't point out, but I used black if it wasn't obvious by the tip there. So we're going to use clear, and this is what we used in the past, and man, it worked really good. I think it was like $5-6 for a tube of it. We found it at our local Home Depot, both of them. Oh. That was my dry fit. I freaked out. I thought I did 3 of them in it, and I did not. Kind of panicked there on camera. Okay, this is our rear. Okay, got that pretty good and centered. Okay, last one. Okay guys, that's all 4 wheels on there. Make sure you go over one last time and make sure that it's on exactly where you guys want it so that it's going to be a nice even match. Worry about the outside more than the inside. You're not going to really see that. So this is the time if you wanted to, because you're about done with your gloves, if you wanted to go through and level out any of those little high spots. I mean, it does want to seep out just a little bit here and there. It shouldn't be a ton because you don't want to actually get right next to the edge. And it's not a bad idea to kind of push it around so that it conforms to the shape of the tire, because it does get to a smaller diameter there. This one definitely needs to slide in a little bit. And then once you got the caulk on your gloves, you just fold them inside out and you're done with your doctor's appointment. Okay guys, that's pretty much it for the installation. The next step is going to be letting this cure for 2 days. We'll come back, we'll run a bead around, let it sit for another day, and then we're going to do a test drive on the old C7. Okay, so it's been 2 days. We are going to go ahead and get our black polyurethane and we are going to go around the outside bead to finish off this raised edge here. And what we're going to do is we're going to apply a pretty fat bead, and then we're going to go over it with this putty knife, and we're just going to strike it like this, and hopefully it leaves a nice pretty edge. And if you guys have a helper, which I never seem to, they can spin it while you're applying the bead. And there you go. If there's any little raised spots, don't touch them, just leave it. And then you can go on to the next tire and you can actually apply all that caulk that you had so it doesn't go to waste. You know, you can always take a utility knife after the fact and clean up any boogers. Basically, all we're trying to do is just cover up that ugly raised edge where we just added another layer. Make sense? Okay, so once you've got your bevel on there, make sure you clean up your tools real good. Should come off pretty dang good. And then just let that cure, and you can always clean it up with a utility knife, or if you want, I mean, it's so tempting to come and want to just knock it down with your finger, which is fine. Okay, it's been a couple days since we did our street slick traction upgrade, whatever you want to call it. I haven't came up with a name for it, but it's time to take off the bands, the tape, and install them on the old C7 and check out the performance enhancement. So here it is up close. We'll get some more pictures, but no more hard plastic tire. So let's get stripping. In with the foam. Okay, so another important thing that is a huge bonus that I didn't talk about is these tires. The tires aren't overly expensive, but the shipping on them is basically as much as the tires. So say 4 tires, 40 bucks, but shipping is 40 bucks. You got 80, 100 bucks in the tires. You won't have to deal with that anymore. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, my son did not like traction on the back. He likes to drift and spin and all that. And literally every couple weeks, we were blowing through tires. The old 24 volt ESC'd Corvette here, we switched over to the stock rear wheels so that we could do some drifting. If you put an electronic speed controller in and this stuff wears out, you just pull this off and you install a new one. But if your kid likes to drift and spin out and all that stuff, you're just gonna have to replace the rear tires. But it's very helpful on the front is it gives it a lot of traction so that it doesn't just drift everywhere. For instance, I just did a little test video of before with the plastic tires, and it was just sitting there spinning and it just spun out of control. So